What do you love about being outside and active?
I'm sure I've spent more time outdoors than in. That just feels like home.
Enjoy what you can do, because you never know what is around the corner.
Just being outdoors in the fresh air, it just clears my mind.
Fully immersed in nature is what brings me the most joy.
Hello and welcome back to the Outside and Active podcast, where this week my guest is Priya Gopaldas. Priya is most recognisable as an islander from the 2021 Love Island series, but is also passionate about fitness and running and loves to take part in endurance and ultra marathons, recently completing a 250-kilometre ultra marathon in Sri Lanka, raising money for the NHS. And if all of this wasn't enough, she has also just graduated from medical school at UCL. Just like David from last week's episode, Priya has also taken on the Race to the Stones Ultra. These were both recorded on the same day, just before the ultra marathon, but I can say that they both completed the ultras last weekend, which is absolutely fantastic. But in this episode, we chat all about her pre-race thoughts, alongside how she got into running and how she has fallen in love with it since. Thank you to Keela and Aqua Marina for sponsoring this episode of the Outside and Active podcast. We'll chat a little bit about them later, but until then, let's get straight into this episode with Priya. Priya, hello. Welcome to the Outside and Active podcast. How are you doing?
Hello, Dominic. Yeah, I'm really well. How are you?
I'm good, but I'm feeling slightly... well, you've literally run here and I've just taken a train and sat on my backside. So you're already fully active, and I feel like I should go for a run, after this podcast just to catch up with you.
Well, I mean, I only actually ran maybe just over 2 kilometres. I don't know if you can call that a run. It was a glorified walk because there were so many people en route, dodging.
Monday morning.
People. Yeah, bit stressful.
I like that active commute, sustainability, everething like that.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it was definitely more mental and physical, that tough 2 kilometres.
Good way to start Monday. It's good. Well, I'm going to kick off this podcast by offering you a piece of advice that someone who has been a guest on the podcast is leaving for you, and they don't know who they're leaving it for. And this piece of advice comes from fellow runner Anna Harding, and her piece of advice for you is done is better than none. And the way that she kind of elaborated on that was that sometimes we're not at 100% every single day. We're not able to give 100% to work or life or fitness in this case. But even if we have 20% to give, let's give 100% of that 20% and do what you can. So done is better than none. The question that kind of leads on from that for you is, where do you rank your self-motivation and willpower?
I think it fluctuates. Honestly, depends on the day, depends on my mood, depends what else is going on in my life. I feel like really tough days with like medical school, or, when lots is going on, or I've been socialising lots with friends in the evening. And then that morning, waking up, motivation will probably be quite low because I'll be exhausted, I might not have had a good night's sleep, that kind of thing. But usually... I'd say I'm more over the 50% mark than below it, just because I love waking up early in the morning, exercising, because I know that that's what gets me, through the day. It makes me have a good day when I exercise.
Sets the tempo for your day. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't think I could wake up without doing some sort of movement in the morning, which I guess is a good thing to have.
Yeah, so you're definitely a morning person.
A morning person, yeah. I hate exercising in the evening. Really dislike it. I'm in bed by 8 most nights.
I feel like I'm kind of the opposite. I like getting, like, for the reason that you said, doing something in the morning because it sort of wakes you up and sets the tone for the day. But sometimes I feel like if I'm going to the gym or going for a run, I'm kind of like half awake and feeling tired. But You definitely seem like a morning person.
Yeah, but it does, saying that, it takes me a good half an hour to warm up. So I will start my gym class like half asleep.
Yeah.
But then, music will start going, pre-workout will kick in, and then, you're ready.
We're good to go.
Yeah.
The other question that we ask to every guest is, what do you love about being outside and active?
I think, so what I love about being outside is maybe... it's just the distractions. I know that's a weird answer, but there's just so much going on outside that when you're exercising or whatever you're doing, walking, running, it just feels so much easier when there's different things going on. So whether that's, the sunrise or, people outside that you're watching as you're running, or, you know, beautiful scenery, just like different things that are distracting you that actually help or make the run easier, I think, is what I love about being outside. Versus like a treadmill where it's like, you know, just staring at a wall or, you know, yeah.
Treadmill running compared to running outside, they're like two completely different things, aren't they? I mean, do you like trail running? Do you like road running? Is there a specific area?
So I think I prefer road running, just because that's what I'm used to. It's what I've done most of and what I've enjoyed the most. I love Regent's Park. That's like my home ground. Just like laps of the outer circle. I've been doing those for years now, and I never get bored. I actually like the monotony of it, just knowing what's around the corner. Yeah, it's really strange.
Like little checkpoints.
Yeah, exactly. And it just makes the run so much easier. Like I've run like 5Ks around there because each loop is 5K, or just under. I've run like half marathons around there. I've run ultras around there just because I feel like knowing what's coming up next just makes the end, like the finish line, more sort of manageable in my head.
So if you were doing an ultra, have you ever done an ultra that is specific loops or like a race or an event? Because there are some where it's literally, I think there's even one that's you go as far as you can in 24 hours and it's literally like a 1.5 mile loop. I think that would drive me insane.
Yeah. I think maybe 1.5 miles might be a little bit too small.
That's pushing the edge. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like you'd always be turning.
Yes.
But sorry. But yeah, I've never done one of those. But that is on the bucket list actually. In the next few years, I'll hopefully be checking that one off.
Well, I want to kick this podcast off by saying congratulations, sort of for two things. One, last weekend you've completed an Ironman relay triathlon. So you were the running section of that, and that looked amazing. Looking forward to hearing a bit more about that. But also, after 6 years of medical school, you have passed, and now you're graduating very soon. Two amazing things. Let's start with the Ironman in Nice. Who was your team? How was the running section? How was Nice?
So, I mean, that introduction has made it sound a lot more impressive than it actually was, unfortunately. So it was a half marathon. So I was doing the running part of the Ironman 70.3 relay. So I did it with a few of my boyfriend's family. We all went out to Nice on holiday, and we thought they're quite an active family. And we thought, why not enter? Because we're in France on the same weekend as this race is going on, and honestly it was so much fun. I'd never done an Ironman event before, and I think this was a good way to ease myself into it. An Ironman is definitely on the bucket list as well. God, I've got so many races and things to do, but my boyfriend did one last year, like a full Ironman in Mexico, and I went over there to watch, and it was just incredible. Wow. There are so many competitors, the support is amazing, and so just to be in that environment, I know I was only doing a little bit of it, but that was a good taste of it, and also crossing the line as a team together was the best feeling.
Good experience. Well, I was going to say, just picking up on what you said about the support and the environment, I mean, you'll know how lovely the running community is and how supportive it can be. I imagine is the same with sort of the triathlon events as well.
Yeah, definitely. Even people that have never sort of taken part in an event like that will come out, because it just, I mean, with Ironman especially, they take over the entire city, because the route, like for the cycle event and for the run, they have to close all the roads, and so you've not really got an option but to watch and cheer, and so that was great, just having so many sort of French people, shouting "Allez," and despite not being allowed to have any music or
oh, really?
Yeah, you can't have any headphones in. That's against the rules.
Is that a health and safety thing,
is it just? I think so, but I mean, it might be, but the roads are closed, so I think it's more of getting into the mindset of being like an Ironman.
Would you usually run with music or podcasts or something like that?
Yeah, usually with music. I mean, it's weird. Whenever I have headphones in, I'll play music on my run, but I won't actually listen to it. It would just be like sort of background noise. And, by the end of the run, I wouldn't be able to tell you what I'd been playing.
To.
No. it just helps me like zone out, I think. Yeah, but with that race, there was none of that. But yeah, managed to get through it with the crowd. So that was good.
Well done.
Thank you.
And like I said, the other thing, 6 years of medical school, a long time, and you've been balancing loads of different things, including the running with that. How does it feel to, I say be at the end of that journey, but also the start of the next journey as well? The
start of a new journey, for sure, yeah. I don't know what I'm more excited about, the fact that I've like finished medical school, no more studying, well, for a little bit, or the fact that I'm about to finally start getting paid.
And start paying it back for the graduation, for the tuition as well.
Exactly. So yeah, very excited to be starting work. It's more responsibility.
Yep.
I'm going to have to do some night shifts, which going to be tough. Not so much looking forward to that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to just like starting my career.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's wind back for a bit to where your running journey sort of started. Where can you pinpoint when that was?
So I always enjoyed running at school. I used to do sort of like athletics, cross country, that kind of stuff. And then I didn't really enjoy just like the pressure of it. I found it quite stressful. And so after school, when I started uni, didn't really do much running. But then I started entering some like small 10K events with a few friends. And I found them quite fun. And it got to a point where every weekend I just wanted to do another event. Probably because I enjoyed getting a medal and like the flapjack at the end. Yeah. You know, best part about it.
I think everyone would agree with that, yeah.
Exactly. And so I think it just really started from there. And then I entered my first half marathon with some friends that I played netball with. And then after that race, I think it was the Richmond half, after that, I vowed that I would never run that far ever again.
After your first half marathon?
Yeah.
That's really weird. I did exactly the same thing. To the first person that I think maybe gave me the medal when I got over the line, I said, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah, exactly. It was horrible. I said, I'm a 10K runner. That is my limit. I'm going to stick to 10Ks. And then lockdown happened.
Yeah. And
I just wanted like an escape. So I moved back home. So I live in central London, moved back, which is just on the border of London, bit more space to run, get out. And so I was living with my family, which I haven't done in about 6 years. And so I wanted to get out the house. And running was the perfect way for me to do that. And so I started off by, you know, building up the distance, ran a half marathon, stretched it out, ran a full marathon, and then even, I think, got to 50K. And that was, so ran like a sort of an ultra in my own time over lockdown.
Yeah, not even within the constraints of like an event that you know is coming up and you have to do it. That's all from you just going, oh, well, I've done that and I feel all right, maybe I could do that, and keep breaking those sort of ceilings.
Absolutely. And I think it was, for me, it was all mental. I knew nothing about long distance running at that point. I would go out with, I only had one running belt, which I would use for 10Ks or for my half marathon. I didn't have anywhere to store water, so I would run. I think it was peak summer at one point, run without any water and maybe a few gels. Didn't know anything about like, you know, recovery, stretching, that kind of thing. And so it was all just on how I was feeling
learning
that
on the go.
day. Yeah, so I think I learned the hard way. I definitely my legs were very, very sore, maybe borderline injury, but thankfully didn't get injured. But I felt like I got thrown into the deep end, just, you know, doing it for myself, not really having, you know, any training plans or, not knowing anything, basically.
I want to tell you a little bit about Keela, who are for the everyday adventurer. The We Days Out collection by Keela has been designed to encourage you to adventure local and discover what beauty is on your doorstep. Keela want to show that you can find an adventure anywhere. You don't need to spend thousands on a trip abroad or commit to spending weeks away from home. Whether it's a beach walk finished off with a seat by a campfire to watch the sunset, or your first ever cold water dip, the We Days Out collection has something for everyone. And the best bit, it's made in Scotland. So why not continue your outdoor journey with Keeler's We Day Out collection? Take your first steps and discover the beauty that's right in front of you. You might just be surprised at what you find. But what effects, I mean, it might not do, but you were diagnosed with bronchiectasis?
Yeah, bronchiectasis. Almost there.
Almost there. I was trying so hard. At 15 or when you were younger?
Yeah, when I was younger,
And what effect does that, or what is that for people that might not know? And does it have an effect on your running? Because it's to do with your lungs and breathing.
Yeah, so I think I was 13. I had a really bad bout of pneumonia, ended up in hospital. And then I came out of hospital and had this constant cough. And I mean, you know, as a kid, you're not really worried about it, but my dad was, because he was like, well, this isn't normal. You shouldn't be coughing this much. And yeah, it really impacted my sports. So I remember sports days, just like feeling like I needed an inhaler, but an inhaler wasn't really helping. And so Dad took me to a hospital, had a CT scan, and then they found out that I had bronchiectasis, which is sort of damage to the airway. And it's a permanent thing, but it can be treated. So you can treat it with medication, but I choose to treat it with exercise. So doing a lot of cardiovascular exercise actually helps because it just helps clear out your chest, prevents things building up in your chest. And so that's probably one of the reasons why I've just been active since that age, just knowing that actually being active is really important to stop me coughing. Like, it's vital for my health. And I can see the immediate effects when I don't exercise. If I've taken like a week off of not doing any sort of cardiovascular exercise, I will inevitably just get a cough. And,
and actually the opposite of what I may have thought of, that running might put more pressure onto that, actually the opposite of when you're more sedentary, it might build up and have more of an effect on you. I mean, but even so, some of the events and races and amazing things that I want to ask you about in a bit, when you take them on, does it have an impact at all, or is it actually something that now you manage quite well and that you're used to?
I think now I manage it quite well. And a lot of people with bronchiectasis, they tend to get chest infections, especially over the winter time. But I think because I've just been so sort of, constant with my exercise, I've made sure to do at least a little bit of cardiovascular exercise every week, no matter what's going on. I've made sure that, I've stopped any negative effects of my condition from like reoccurring. But sorry, I've forgotten what you asked.
But having an effect when you're taking on, really long distance runnings. Yeah.
So with those really long distances, I find, I don't really feel that I've got any sort of condition. Sometimes it also depends on what I'm eating, and if I'm sleeping well, I can feel like that. If I'm having, if my immune system has taken a hit, then because of all those things that occur with, multi-day events especially, I can feel like a cough building. God, saying that.
Good timing, yeah.
Good timing. But I know how to clear my chest now. I did physio for a while, which is weird that you can do chest physio as well. Like a lot of runners are used to like stretching and like doing like physio for your muscles, but actually your diaphragm and all your like within your ribs, you have muscles. And for when you have a condition like mine, you can train those muscles by doing chest physio, and so that helps to clear out the chest. And so
it's probably something that I hadn't really considered before. And like you said, even for your condition, that makes a massive impact. But for anyone, and just in general for running, it might create a bit more of a space for breath. We know how important breathing is for running. Life, but running especially.
Yeah, definitely. I try not to think too much about breathing, because whenever I do, I feel like I just start coughing. So it's something that I just think, happens. I have on in the background. I don't want to think. I don't like to focus on it. Obviously. But yeah, it's so important. It's so important to train those muscles too.
I always like asking people that do ultra marathons, where the door sort of opened to learning about it? I mean, it seems like you kind of did it by accident during lockdown, but then, and even like you said, you didn't know a lot about running at that point. What have you learned in the years since about ultra marathons, the running community, and picking up bits of advice, like now obviously running with water and little things like salt tablets and nutrition and recovery? How have you sort of learned after stepping through that door?
So actually, I mean, I think I started by reading books written by ultramarathon runners. And then I thought, wow, this is really cool how they can go on for days and days. And it was just great to have like an insight into their mental, like the mental side of it, from their perspective. So I read books by Scott Jurek. He has quite a few out.
He's been on this podcast. He's lovely. Such a nice guy.
Yeah, my idol. Very jealous you saying him.
He was so nice.
Really
cool.
So
nice.
Really
I took the opportunity to ask. It was before I'd taken on my first ultra, so I was like, "This is really cheeky. We're talking about you, but can I have some advice?" And he did. He was a really, really nice guy.
Yeah, he's really cool. And I'm a vegetarian and try to eat a lot of vegan foods. And in his book, he's got loads of recipes, or in one of his books, which I still use to this day. So, love him. And then, there's this book here actually, by someone called Emil Zatopek. I've heard about him, so he's really cool. Wow. He's an ultra runner, and he used to do fartlek training to train up for ultras. So lots of sprinting, and that's how he would, do really well in ultras. And that's how I learned about like interval training, just by hearing about him and a book written by someone else. I have no idea, but
Lots of books.
I've read quite a few, and then I sort of moved on to talking to other runners. And when you take part in races, ultra runners especially are really friendly.
Yes.
So after lockdown, I thought, right, I've got to enter an ultra, and so I signed up to the Ultra X 100k, and I thought I'm going to jump in at the deep end. Because 100k one day, that's quite far for your first ultra, but I thought I really wanted a challenge, and I thought, it's in the UK, it's in Surrey, how bad can it really be? Disclaimer, Surrey has loads of hills.
Lots of hills, yeah, both North and South Downs, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, which I didn't realise. And also, I hadn't really done much trail running. I was always on the roads, so that was a challenge.
Quite technical ground then sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. But I felt like I was in a really good shape, both mentally and physically, to be able to compete. And so I thought, why not? Let's go for it. And that was a really fun race. It was 2 50-kilometre loops. I had my mum and my aunt come watch, which is good. And I was really nervous going into it. Yeah. But everyone was so friendly, especially at the checkpoints. Lots of food, lots of, Haribos, Snicker bars, flapjacks.
Anything you can find.
Exactly. Anything you can find. Lots of music at the checkpoints. But between checkpoints, it was really nice because you were sort of running by yourself for most of it. And I liked that because I've always been used to running by myself.
Yeah.
Just
through lockdown.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I really enjoyed that event, and I placed third. So I was really happy with that. Yeah.
Considering you've thrown yourself in the deep end, like you say, you've gone straight in at 100k. I mean, there's the checkpoints are sort of 30 miles, 50 miles, and 80k, and then 100k, and then you build up from there. Until there's no limit of distance of ultramarathons that people take on. But that really, were you just thinking, no, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it properly. Mm-hmm. What was your thought process? Or how did you feel when you crossed the finish line?
I felt amazing. So it was sort of, when it hit me, it was maybe a kilometre before the end of the finish. And I'm glad it did, because I just started crying. It was really weird. I didn't expect to. I was just so happy that I knew I was going to finish. And thankfully it hit me then and not at the finish line, because that would have been quite embarrassing.
Cross the line and just break down into a ball of tears. So what's wrong? What's wrong? No, I'm happy, I promise.
Yeah, no, didn't have that. But it was like a kilometre before. Remember just crying and just like knowing that I'd really wanted to do this, to do an event like this and compete in a race since lockdown. It probably only been maybe a year, but it was, you know, a long time of training. And for ultras, it's quite a lot of dedication, you know, like hundreds of kilometres of prep for that one day.
Yeah.
And so I was really, really happy when I crossed the line. And that 1 kilometre before, like, had a quick cry, wiped away the tears, and then,
Across the finish
crossed
line.
the line. Yeah.
And did you have the same thought that a lot of ultra runners have when they complete something, they're almost already looking at the next thing? Did you have something in mind, or did you want to level up?
No. I after that 100K vowed to never do anything like that again.
The same as the half marathon.
Exactly,
Yeah.
same as the half marathon. I'd actually booked a spa for the next day.
That's great admin.
But because it was in the countryside in Surrey, like outside of London, booked a spa, so we're going to stay the night and then use the spa the next day. Woke up the next day and didn't want to move. Like, legs weren't working. Didn't want to get out of bed, but I did to go to breakfast.
That's another thing that people always want to hear. What did you eat afterwards?
I think it was like something really boring, like avo on toast and like loads of cereal. But it was whatever the hotel was offering.
Yeah.
Probably some pancakes actually, but yeah, nothing too memorable.
Nothing outrageous.
No. I think I did a lot of eating on the day,
Yeah.
just like, you know, at the checkpoints. So the next day I was feeling okay. Well, you know, I wasn't super hungry, but actually my body was in a lot of pain. I didn't want to go to the spa. I think I'd fallen over at like the 30K mark, and so I had a few bruises, and so I just wanted to sit still. And so spent the Sunday, so the ultra was on Saturday, spent the Sunday just sitting down. Probably the worst recovery post-ultra, just not moving, but that's what I did.
So then,
no regrets.
At what point did you then start having the thoughts of, okay, well, what else can I achieve?
I think, well, after I finally did recover and the muscles got moving again.
I could walk again, yeah.
Yeah. Started walking, started running again, and then that's when your brain like wanders. It's like, right, well, what's next? And I think med school sort of got in the way, because when I'm thinking about what actually happened after that 100K, I think we ended up going back to med school. So we got taken off our placements during COVID.
Right.
That's why I moved back home, had more free time. But then they were recruiting medical students back into hospitals.
Yeah.
And so we were working in hospitals as well as studying, and things were slowly starting to return back to normal, somewhat normal. But it meant I had less free time, so I couldn't train as much. And so I think I just sort of kept things ticking. So just running as much as I could, and didn't really have a race in mind. But, you know, that's what happens when you have, you know, something else that you're also working towards. And so running wasn't my priority at that point. And then I think I signed up to Sri Lanka pretty soon. I went on to Love Island, came off, signed up to Sri Lanka after that. And then did the 250 kilometre.
So yeah, that's, I mean, like, you threw yourself in the deep end with that first ultra marathon, 100K, then over doubling the distance for your next one. Why Sri Lanka? Why that event? And did you just want to see how far you could push yourself?
So yeah, I think that was it really. I chose Sri Lanka because I really like UltraX. I did my 100K with them. Thought that was fantastic, like really well organised. And they asked me if I wanted to do another one, and so I thought, yeah, sure, why not? Let's challenge myself. Let's up the distance. But also let's, I thought that, you know, up in the distance, it being 250 kilometres, that is a huge step up from 100K, but it's over multiple days. So
that's a different challenge as well.
Exactly. So that felt, it felt a little bit more manageable in my head, just because, you know, it was like running. I'd done a few challenges where, you know, it's like run the days of the month and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I could run back-to-back runs pretty well, and you know, I was okay at that kind of thing. But the challenge for me really was the heat, because I knew Sri Lanka was pretty flat, so there's no elevation. The distance was longer, but it was just the heat that I was really worried about. That was probably the biggest challenge for me, just dealing with that, because I think it was like 40 degrees. There wasn't much shade, and I'd never really done much exercise in heat.
No acclimatisation. How long were you there before you then started?
So I didn't really have much time off medical school. So I think I got there maybe 2 days before, and went on one 5K run, was absolutely soaked. And yeah, I thought, God, this is going to be really tough. Yeah, it's going to be really, really tough. But I'd spoken to, by this point, I'd spoken to lots of other runners who had run in similar sort of conditions, and their top piece of advice was bring salt tablets and take them religiously, like bring loads of them. So that's what I did, and yeah, managed to survive.
The salt tablets help with cramp and hydration as well.
Yeah, so yeah, they've got a few different things in them, but they're almost more important than water, just because they help with, they stop you cramping, they stop, what happens when you dehydrate is like it can really badly affect your nervous system, and so, which actually happened to one of the runners. When you dehydrate, you can have like a seizure, and so in those types of conditions, especially when you're doing ultras, events like that can happen. Thankfully, she was okay, because you know, Ultravax had a doctor on site, so it was all good. But you know, ultras are in the heat, are dangerous events, and people forget that. And so, you know, when you run, you think, oh, you know, what's the worst that can happen? Or, you know, get a cramp. But actually, it can really badly affect, you know, the rest of your body.
I mean, that is a really good point about how, you know, obviously the amazing distance that you travel, but the human body isn't really built to be running that far. That's just, there's a reason why you get to a certain point and it hurts and your brain is telling you to stop. But it also, on the flip side of that, shows how strong we are mentally and then subsequently physically to actually achieve those things. I mean, you must have a high level of sort of mental strength and ability to be able to push through what I imagine were quite difficult low times over those 5 days.
Yeah, it was really tough. That's definitely the toughest event I've ever done. I remember my phone died, like it broke completely, and so I had no music for most of the days, and I just had to, I was just in my own head trying to distract myself. And that was really tough, just having no distractions apart from, you know, scenery around. But yeah, the heat was really tough, and just knowing that you can carry on, like knowing it's really hard. But I think when you've been running for a while, or just doing, you know, intense physical activity, you know the limits of your body, and you know when you can push, and you also sometimes you know when to stop. Like, there are times where I've thought, well, I shouldn't have gone on that run. You know, you're in loads of pain. You've probably not done yourself any good at all. But, you know, you also, you know when you can carry on, which most of the time, like 90% of the time, is going to be fine. You just have to push through that barrier. With me, I tend to get to a really bad point, you know, where everything's hurting. But then you carry on running for like a few more kilometres, and then all the pain goes.
It's weird how that works, isn't it? I mean, it can be both. You can feel amazing, and then 30 seconds later, you feel like you just never want to run again. And then, like you said, the flip side of that, you can feel terrible, and you just know, I just need to push through the next few kilometres, maybe get to an aid station, maybe, you know, run with someone for another few K, and then gets you back into a good area. It's really weird how it works like that.
Yeah, actually, I have no idea how it works. It'd be a cool area to research, I guess.
Well, there's a job. There's one to add to the bucket list to research for that.
Yeah, adding it.
So we know how you felt when you crossed the half marathon and the 100K. How did you feel when you got to the end point and finished that 5-day 250K race?
It was just, I think at the end of that, it was just relief that I'd finished. I didn't know whether I was going to finish or not because it was such a small group of us that did it. I think it was maybe 50 runners that started, and I think it was maybe like 39 or 40 that finished. So lots of people hadn't actually made it to that finish line. Wow. And so it was just, it felt really like rewarding, and it felt like a real team effort. And you had so much support from everyone. And it almost felt like you weren't just doing it for yourself, you were doing it for the team and for the people around you.
You get to know the other people, the other runners in the event.
Yeah.
There's a small pool of you. You get to know them over those 5 days.
Absolutely, yeah. You know everything about them because, like, a few of them you're running together, you know, you're all camping together. You see the worst of them. So
they see the worst of you.
They see the worst of you, exactly. And so... and you know, there's no hiding anything. When you're in pain, like pure pain, like you are during ultras and 40-degree heat, there is no, like, you can't really hide that pain. You just got to let it out. And so that's the best way, I think. But yeah, having the support from everyone there, and you know, doing it together really bonds you. And yeah, I still keep in contact with a few of them, so that's great.
If you head to Aquamarina's website right now, then you can save 15% on their 2023 range using our special code OAA15 at checkout when you have filled up your cart. Aquamarina has been producing high-quality paddle equipment for over 30 years. Their products are made for your needs, backed by technology that keeps you safe and to go with you wherever your adventure takes you. Water sports are absolutely massive right now, so if you want to join in on the fun, then head to aquamarinauk.co.uk and take advantage of that discount. Wow, an unbelievable experience, and it clearly hasn't put you off of ultras because you have another one coming up next week, or when we're recording this is next week. It's in mid-July. It's the Race to the Stones, which is that also in Surrey?
That's also in Surrey. No, that's in Oxford, sorry.
That's in Oxford.
Oxford, yes. On Saturday, so coming up a few more days.
Why that event? How far is it? How has your training been going?
So I'm only doing the 50K. There's a 100K on offer as well, but I am just not trained up at all. I feel like it's going to be a really good event. It's like the UK's biggest ultra. There are loads of people.
One of the oldest ones, I want to say as well.
Yeah, I think it might be. But there's a really good group of people doing it. It's a great community, great atmosphere, and so I'm looking forward to that. I think it will just be like a fun day out, is what I'm hoping.
It's amazing. There will be people listening to this that might be hearing about ultramarathons for the first time, or think about 50 kilometres and think that that's completely unrealistic. Hearing you say, it'll be a fun day out. But imagine half marathon version of you when you first took on that first half marathon however many years ago, hearing you say that. I mean, it must be weird to look back at that and see how far you've progressed. Yeah,
it's really strange to think back at it. I think when I say it's going to be a fun day out, that's just me trying to reassure myself that it's going to be okay.
Take the pressure away.
Yeah. That's what I say when, it's that whole sort of running mentality. When you're running a half marathon, it's like, it's only 2 10Ks, it'll be okay. When you're running a full, it's only 2 half marathons, it's fine. Running an ultra, fun day out, it's okay. Just sort of, playing it down so that mentally, it's you're not worried about anything.
You said ideally you would have done more training for this. What does your ideal sort of training timescale? I know it depends on what you're doing, but your ideal training timescale look for a 50K?
I think I can. So if you go from sort of being able to run a half marathon, I probably need at least maybe 8 weeks of good training just to really build up that distance and feel a bit more comfortable with 35K plus and marathons, that kind of thing. But I'm going into this having not run a marathon in maybe 6 months, so it's gonna be a challenge for me.
Yeah.
I've run quite a few halves,
Yep.
and so I feel comfortable with that distance. But I haven't done that, 8-week training. I would have liked to. So I'm going to take this one slow and just, enjoy the atmosphere.
What is the food or snack, or it might even be a drink, that if you're running up to an aid station and you see that, it just makes you feel so happy to see that food? I'm going to eat all of it.
A Twix bar.
Twix bar.
Yeah. It's because I would never really carry chocolate when I'm doing events like this, because it melts and it's like short-term energy. You don't really want chocolate, but actually you do really want chocolate. Like when you see it at that and like at the aid station, I love a Twix for some reason. It's just crunchy, delicious, milk chocolate, and gives you that energy for the next maybe 7 kilometers that you need.
It's funny what you crave. It is
Yeah.
funny what you crave, because I remember when I did one of just thinking, I like melon anyway, but that watermelon, for some reason, that was just going to save me on that day. Like, that is just all I wanted. I wanted watermelon. I wanted that freshness. And then you got to the next one, and a peanut butter bar. Like, that is the only thing that I want. I was helping someone who was doing a back-to-back marathons for 25 days and raising money for charity. And he had this obsession for pork pies for maybe the first 10 days. And then I saw him again on day 15, and I said, "Oh, no pork pies." He said, I never want to see a pork pie ever again in my entire life. Like, that is, I can't deal with it, because nutrition is so important. I mean, especially in Sri Lanka when you're doing back-to-back things. But do you have a nutrition plan for the Race to the Stones? Will it be gels and salt tablets again and things like that to get you through, and Twix bars, obviously?
Yeah, I think so. I might stay clear of the Twix bars.
Okay.
I think it's a similar sort of pork pie situation going on with them at the minute. But I think I'm going to go with gels, and then maybe two Cliff bars, like in the pockets, just in case. But plan is just stick with gels, because 50k is a bit longer than a marathon. I'm prepared mentally, just it's a marathon and then a little bit more,
Yes.
So
Very rational.
Yeah. So I've done a marathon before with gels, so I'm hoping I can do a 50k with just gels. But I am going to have some Cliff bars just in case. So
Just in case.
yeah. So I haven't thought through the nutrition, but I'm going to wing it on the day.
It'll be fine.
Nice
It'll
day
be
out,
fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Any spas booked for the day after this time, or are you just going to be...
No, not this time.
Not this time.
Not this time.
How does it feel going from starting to run during lockdown properly to then being on the cover of Women's Magazine? Like, that must feel incredibly surreal.
Yeah, totally surreal. Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I saw it. Like went into Waitrose and saw like my face there, and just thought, yeah, how could like little me running from like just doing 10Ks occasionally, like running over lockdown, never wanting to do a half marathon ever again after my first, be like on the cover of a running magazine. That was definitely a dream come true.
Because obviously, being on reality TV, there's going to be media attention, but with that, like, that's something that is really, you're really passionate about. Like, running is your thing, you're good at it, and you will continue to do it. So that particular piece of coverage is amazing. I mean, there was one particular, the quote on the front that said, "Running gave me the confidence to enter Love Island." Is that, explain a bit more about what running actually does for your confidence and mental well-being?
I think, running is one of the best things that you can do for your mental health. What I always tell myself is, if I'm feeling like I don't want to go for a run, or just like in a bad mood, don't just want to sit in my room, I'll always tell myself, go out for a run, doesn't matter how far. But at the end of your run, you will always feel better. And I know that, after my run, I feel so much better. It could literally be like 2 kilometres, and I will feel 1,000 times better than I did before I started that run. And so it's just sort of knowing that. And just, it gives you just playing sport or running. Well, for me, running gives me so much more confidence than if I wasn't to do it, I guess. Just it's supported me through lots of things, breakups, running that off, just, any sort of stress at medical school. I always used to run to get rid of any exam stress. And even at school, I'd go for runs when I was stressed out about GCSEs and A levels.
It's a real time to it's a vice to be able to let off steam, to be able to think things through, and sometimes also just to forget and let. Whether you want to run with headphones in or headphones out or whatever, it's just an opportunity to escape from the noise. Obviously, if you're running next to a road, then maybe not. But trail running and taking on different events, yes, it's difficult, and yes, it's not for everyone. But the effect that it has on your mental well-being, I think I've said that on this podcast loads of times, you never regret a run. There's not many times you might be a difficult run. It might not have maybe felt good, but you probably come back, and once you get that dopamine hit and endorphin rush, it feels good.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree with that. And it's a thing where when you go for a run, with me, when I go for runs, I just turn off. And so whatever stress that I'm going through, it's just an escape from that. And it's great just to be able to have that where you can escape from your life, from anything around you, turn off and just be in your own space running. I mean, I know that a lot of people like running in groups and things, and that really helps with motivation. For me, it definitely does, doing things in a team. But when I do my sort of daily runs, I like to just be by myself because it's that escape that I absolutely love.
Is there a particular song that if it comes on, that gives you an extra boost in your step?
Oh, I'm not sure. I do like a bit of Aloe Black, just that kind of a little bit jazzy, happy, upbeat, that kind of music makes me very happy, and so that adds to the run.
It does make a difference sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, there's no one song in particular.
I like it. Are there any events that are in the back of your head that are that could be interesting? I mean, the one that I'd sort of written down, that when you were talking about back-to-back marathons, Marathon des Sables is obviously one of the popular races that even non-runners know about. Is that something that's potentially on the horizon, or other races, whether they are long multi-day or actually just half marathons or marathons in particular areas you want to visit?
I mean, MDS is definitely one that I've thought about. And the one in Mont Blanc is also, obviously their sort of bucket list ultras that I will probably do at some stage in life. But I think the one, a race that I really want to do in the next sort of year would be a 100-miler. So that's a one-day event, 100 miles. I haven't really decided where, but I know that it won't be somewhere hot. I think that's...
It won't be somewhere hot. It won't be a 1.5 mile looped one.
No, exactly. No. It could have a loop, but not sort of like a small looper. Maybe like a 50k loop, or a nice scenic 100-miler. Maybe in the British countryside somewhere. If anyone knows of any, then do let me know.
Suggestions. I mean, there are so many events and races on all the time. There are, and it's great to see people support all of these events, because it was a really difficult time in lockdown when these events couldn't go on. It costs a lot of money to put on events. So hearing you talk about these amazing events, and obviously UltraX, that provide the platform for runners to challenge themselves and try something different. It's great to hear that you're, looking at different events and seeing what to take on next.
Absolutely, yeah. And event especially with the Race of the Stones that I'm doing on the weekend, Threshold are a really great company too. Their ultras are made for everyone, so they're specifically made for people who have never done an ultra before and just want to dip their toes in ultra territory. They're really accessible. really well supported, and like the cut-off times are amazing. So
Yeah, the completion rate, it says on the website, the completion rate is like extremely high because obviously running an ultra is difficult. Sometimes there's things that get in the way of you completing that. But when you have an accessible ultra marathon, like an ultra marathon is scary, but when you have that evidence behind it saying, yep, well, we're going to do all we can to help you through and get you to the finish line, it just makes so much easier and takes a little bit of pressure off the shoulders.
yeah, definitely. And I think everyone, like an ultra is a challenge for anyone, you know, even the most sort of accomplished athletes. Doing an ultra marathon is always going to be challenging. And so I think it's so important that we, you know, people explore that world, even if they might not think running more than a half marathon is their thing. That's the headspace I was in.
Yeah.
But having been exposed to like the ultra world, you feel like anything is possible. And after you complete an ultra, you're sort of like, yeah, I can do anything.
Exactly.
And it's great to have that feeling. And that's, you know, and that applies to my life generally now. Like whenever I think, oh, am I going to be able to, you know, get that grade at medical school? No, I can do it. It's just going to take hard work. It's a challenge, but, you know, I can do it. And just having that mentality, I wouldn't have had that if I didn't do ultras.
That kind of leads me on to my last question before I ask you for your piece of advice of that you being on reality TV and actually throwing yourself into that situation is quite a daunting thing. How was that experience for you, and what made you? I mean, you said it in the women's running magazine interview, but what was it that made you go from that experience? What positives could you take from it? And does that almost in the reverse effect had an effect on your running and your studies as well?
Yeah, going into reality TV. So sorry, could you repeat the question?
How was that experience for you?
Yeah.
I said a lot, but how was the experience for you?
So I mean, the experience was wild. I'd never watched Love Island before. It's not really my thing. Well, that's what I thought anyway. Yeah. Before going onto the show. I just got a message through Instagram and I thought, you know, why not? I'll apply. Nothing's going to come of it. And then ended up on the show. And yeah, it felt totally surreal. Being on TV, you like just having cameras around you the entire day. But I think having the lessons that I learned from running, just being sort of adapting to situations. You know, if something goes wrong, it's fine, just like move on. That kind of mentality, I definitely applied it to the show. I was just like, you know, I might not be in an environment that I'm very comfortable in, but just enjoy being uncomfortable. That kind of, you know, mindset is what I was just thinking the entire time I was there. And you know, it will be okay. You're gonna be fine. And yeah, came off the show, and that was also totally surreal. Life got really busy, and that obviously took a toll on running. I wasn't able to train as much, but I was able to instead, you know, talk to other people, you know, do interviews, things like that, like go onto podcasts, do this kind of thing, which actually helps other people, you know, oh, Priya can do it, I can do it too. You know, she's a medical student, she's at uni full time. If she can, you know, find the time to run and complete an ultra, then maybe I can. And I've had so many messages and things like that, which has made sort of not prioritising running as much really worth it. And so yeah, it's been a great experience, a great time coming. Yeah.
I mean, a whirlwind, but it seems to have unstirred you in your education, but also your running. Your you know, like we said at the beginning, graduated, passed, and you're taking on ultras still. With being able to balance all of that is obviously very difficult. But like you just said, if you're able to do it, then it projects to other people that they're able to balance whatever different things are happening in their life and take on different challenges as well. I mean, I think very early on when you went into the show, you said that you ran ultra marathons. I remember there being a real fascination we saw a real fascination with other people going, why do you do that? Like, what type of things? And I was actually like, oh, that's really cool. Like, someone who works on a running show, like, oh, that's really cool to see that being projected on sort of primetime TV.
Yeah, it's definitely a niche. Like, I think the average person would just look at you like, yep, why would you do that? Why would you run that far? It's a waste of time. Like,
I mean, in a way, I can completely understand why they're the questions.
Yeah, no, I do understand that too. Having never thought I'd run an ultra and thought that was just something totally ridiculous myself. And so I do understand that. But I think it's just, it's a progression. It's the mentality of taking like the small steps in order to achieve that like one big goal. Just now, seeing myself like a few years later, since I first ran that half marathon till now.
Where you are.
It's I wouldn't have believed it if you told me I'd be running ultras now and having only run a half. So yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot of people that can take inspiration from that and that will resonate with your story. And I really appreciate you coming on and talking about your experiences. And I'm really excited to see how you get on your day out at the Race to the Stones.
No, it's definitely not going to be a fun day out.
As I see the
know
panic
that,
setting in your face. No,
yeah.
I know how you meant it. Looking forward to following that along. The only thing that's left to get from you, I offered you a piece of advice at the beginning from Anna. Now is your opportunity to leave a piece of advice for someone who will be coming onto the podcast in the near future.
So I think my piece of advice would be to try to enjoy everything that you're doing. If it's a really tough race, smile through the pain. I feel like even just physically smiling, even if you're like really struggling with something, can really help. There've been like studies on it that have actually shown that if you just put a smile on your face, it just like helps you a little bit mentally. But finding something to laugh at, even if it is like how ridiculous a situation you're in can be, when things are mentally really tough, can just be, an absolute lifesaver when you're running and like something really tough. So, I think that would be my top tip.
Thank you very much. I look forward to passing that along.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this latest episode of the Outside and Active podcast with my guest, Priya Gopaldas. If you enjoyed that episode, then please leave a like, follow this podcast, or share it with someone who you think would enjoy it just as much as you, so we can grow this Outside and Active community and continue to get on some incredible guests from the Outside and Active world. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Outside and Active podcast. Thank you to Keela and Aqua Marina UK for supporting us. But until that time, enjoy the outdoors.